Hey everyone, welcome back to part 6 of my programming Klondike and C++ tutorial. I've already went ahead and I've created two files, gamestate.h and gamestate.cpp, and went ahead and included gamestate.h in our main function. And today what we're going to be doing is writing our code for the game state, as well as starting the game and printing that game out into our console for us all to see. So first of all, I want to start off with some basic code in our gamestate.h. So we're going to have our if and def and our types.h inside this function. And we're also going to have our declarations of these functions, which we're not actually going to declare them in here, but we're just declaring them, and then we're going to actually define them in gamestate.cpp. So we have our start game function, which is just going to start the game and put the deck of cards all into our game state or into our piles in stock. And we're going to have another function for printing out the game state, and an optional parameter right here, which is going to be hidden equals true. So this is just if we're going to if we're going to keep cards hidden, that should be hidden. So if cards are not revealed, we're not going to print them, and we're going to have that default to true. So the only reason we would have this on is if we're trying to debug something, or the game's over and we just want to see how it what the cards were. But normally they should just be hidden. And then over in our gamestate.cpp, first of all, we're going to have a few includes. So we're going to have our header files from random, algorithm, and iostream, as well as gamestate and deck.h. And then we're going to have our two suits definitions. And this is just so we can, with the index of the card, we can extract what the character is. So if it's like an ace of clubs, we're going to know that the rank is 0 and the suit is 0. So then we can just have it in here. So this is kind of like our little map. And then over here, we're going to have a function for printing out the stock cards. So I can actually static inline this. So I'm going to go ahead and do it right here, since we only need it in this one function, this one file. So what it's going to check first is if the face card is -1 or if it's equal to the stock side. So this is if there's no card that should be revealed. It's just going to simply see out empty, which stands for like empty. And then it's going to return the function. So if it should not be displaying a card, then it won't display anything. It's just going to say empty. Otherwise, it's going to see out the ASCIIs or the suit and then the rank with these functions. So it's going to get the card suit, get the card rank. And it's going to get of this card, so at the face card. And then we're just going to simply get the ASCII of that. So on to our next function, we have our print foundation card, which we can actually also static inline. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. Since we're no longer going to be using this in other functions, so static inline, and it's simply printing out the foundation card, so the 4 foundations. And so if there's no cards at a foundation, it's going to print out empty. Otherwise, same thing as above, it's going to get the index and it's going to print it out. And moving on to our next one, so right over here, we have our static inline void print card right over here. So this is just for printing generally any card. It's kind of the same thing, but instead it actually checks if it's no card instead of, it's a little bit different from the rest of this, which actually check slightly differently. And then over here we have our print pile. So this is simply going to print out this entire pile for us. And it's pretty simple as well. So we have a pointer to the pile and we have a boolean of hidden. So if we're hiding, so for the for loop, we're going to print out all cards in this pile. So if the card is revealed, so the index of that card is greater than the index of the card that's revealed. So if it is a card that is either above the card that's revealed or at the card that's revealed, and if we're just if hidden is false. So like if we don't want the cards hidden, then we're just going to print the card. Otherwise, we're going to print out these 2 stars, which means this card is hidden. And then we're going to simply see out a blank space to separate each card, so we can kind of see it. And then here's kind of the main function that we are really looking for right over here, which is going to be our print game state function. And this is just printing out the entire game state so we can see the current state of the board. Again, it has that boolean of hidden and this game state pointer that's being passed in. So first it's going to put out a little padding, and then it's going to say the current stock card, and it's going to print this stock card. And then it's going to print its foundations, the 4 foundations, index out 0, 1, 2, and 3. Then it's going to print out the piles, which is C, S, D, and H. So first it prints out what these 4 foundations are, which is the clubs, spades, diamonds, and hearts. And then it's going to print out its piles. And after it prints out its piles, it's going to print out its moves. So this is just the moves that have been played in the game. So then this is the part to print out the pile. So we're just going to print from the from the 7th pile all the way down to the first pile. So it's going to kind of look like this. And we're just going to print pile for each of them. We're going to say pile plus 1 because this is only the index of the pile. So for example, pile 1, next one would be pile 2, and so on. And then we're just going to go ahead and add our padding. Now let's kind of look at our last function here, which is going to be our start game function, which is kind of really where all the logic is. And it's going to, again, take in a pointer to the game state. And first of all, it's going to first make a deck. So it's going to make a deck. It's going to fill this deck, and it's going to shuffle this deck. And after it shuffles this deck, then it's going to use this deck, and it's going to start filling in the piles first. So it's going to fill in from pile 1 all the way to pile 7. So for each of them, it's going to have its cards pointer start. So this is the start location. It's just going to be the deck.cards plus the deck.current card. So this is to make sure that we just don't start from the same location every time, and we ignore the cards that we've already quote unquote used. And then it's going to increment the pile. So now we're on to our next pile. And I could just have it here, but here is just a little bit better. And then we're going to have our deck.current card plus equals to pile. So we're going to have incremented by the pile. So for example, if there were 7 cards, then in our 6th one, we should remove those 7 because we've used 7 cards to put in that pile. Now we should be starting from the 8th card. So we're going to add 7 onto that. And then we want the pointer for the end. So this is simply going to be the deck.cards plus the deck.current card yet again, because if you remember, we just incremented it over here. And then we're just going to use, since we already included our C string earlier, we can very simply here just do our copy, and we're just going to copy it over from here to here. And since this is in our algorithm, we already included it. And we're going to copy from the start to the end, and we're going to copy this many. We're going to copy the piles, pile minus 1 dot pile. And this is where we're going to copy to. And then once we finish this for all 7 piles, we're going to simply kind of repeat the same thing, but this time we're just going to repeat it for the stock. So this is our main function to kind of start the game. I have a deck and put the deck into the piles and the stock. So then in our main function, what we can do now is we can do game state, and we can just have our game state over here. We initiate our game state, and then we can simply do start game and do a reference to our game state. And then lastly, we can just do print game state, and we can bring in a pointer to our game state yet again. And then let's go ahead and take a look at how this is going to go. So I'm going to make it first, make sure there's no errors. Good. And then we're going to run cgk.exe. And as you can see, this is very beautiful formatting. And we can kind of just see that, oh, we have our 7 piles right over here. We have the number of moves over here, and we have the current stock card, and we have our 4 foundations and what the foundations are. If you don't like the way this looks, you can tweak around it with you, since this is all kind of purely personal, like opinionated, how you like it to look. And you can just go ahead in your gamestate.cpp and you can just tweak this print gamestate function right over here. Otherwise, that's going to be it for this tutorial. And in our next part, we're going to move on to perhaps starting our moves and our move logic. So I look forward to seeing you there. If you have any suggestions or questions, please leave them in the comment below. And yeah, have a nice day.